Think about those everyday tools, the ones you just grab and use without any fuss. What makes them so indispensable?
Mhm.
Often it's their simplicity, right? The fact that you don't need to spend ages setting them up before you can actually get to work.
Yeah, exactly. Less friction.
Precisely. And today we're diving into a tool for web development that really takes that idea to heart.
We are. We're going to be exploring QuykHTML. That's QuykHTML. And it's pronounced QuykHTML, which is, a pretty clever little play on words.
It really is. And what's super interesting about QuykHTML is its core. It's a Python library. Now, you might be thinking, oh, great, another library to install.
Uh-huh. The usual setup dance.
But here's the brilliant twist. It requires absolutely no pip installs. Zero.
That's the key takeaway, really. You just download the Python file, drop it into your project folder, and boom, you're ready to start coding.
Right.
Think about those moments when you just need a quick way to generate some HTML, maybe for a simple script, or perhaps you're in an environment where installing packages is tricky or just not allowed.
Yeah, like a lockdown server.
Exactly. QuykHTML completely bypasses that friction. It makes it incredibly accessible, which I think is a huge advantage. That ease of entry is just fantastic.
And the source for our exploration today is as direct as it gets. It's literally the raw Python file containing the QuykHTML library itself, provided to us as pasted text.
Straight from the source code.
So our mission is to delve into this code, understand its key functionalities, and see just how useful it might be in the, real world. We want you, the listener, to come away with a really clear understanding of this tool and its potential to simplify your web development tasks.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Looking at the code itself, one of the first things that might catch your eye, actually, are a few print statements right near the top. It's a small thing, but it adds a bit of personality.
It does. There's a friendly, thank you for using QuykHTML, and then a straightforward way to support the project. A Cash App handle, Bemling, is right there.
Simple and direct.
Yeah. And it finishes with an encouraging, I hope you continue to enjoy using QuykHTML. It's just a nice reminder that there's, often a human behind the code.
That's a good touch. Now let's get to the core functionality, the QuykHTML class. This is basically the main thing you'll interact with when you want to generate HTML using QuykHTML. You start by creating an instance of this class.
Okay, let's unpack the init method then. That's the constructor, right? The first bit of code that runs when you create a QuykHTML object. Looks like it's setting up quite a few things behind the scenes.
Seriously. You see self.all right away, which looks like it acts as a central list or container to hold all the HTML elements you create as you go.
Makes sense. Keep track of everything.
Then we have several attributes related to javascript.self.scripts, self.scripts and page load, self.scripts draggable, self.scriptsim group, and self.scriptsim group time.
Okay, hold on. Draggable.imgroup. That sounds like more than just static HTML.
It is. What's fascinating here is that QuykHTML seems to offer built-in support for some basic interactive elements, like making things draggable or creating image slideshows, apparently without you needing to write that JavaScript from scratch.
Really?
Yeah, and notice self.scriptsim group time is set to 5,000 milliseconds by default. So those image transitions in the slideshow would happen every 5 seconds, unless you change it.
Wow, okay. That's pretty convenient. So if you need some basic interactivity, it sounds like QuykHTML has you covered without needing to dive deep into JavaScript yourself.
Seems that way. What else is in it? Well, we have self.head, which is clearly for managing the head section of your HTML. Super important for SEO, meta tags, linking style sheets, that kind of thing.
Right, the essentials.
Then there's self.css. Now, this is interesting. It's actually an instance of another class, CSS, that suggests there's a dedicated, organized way to handle your CSS styles within the library.
Okay, so not just dumping strings of CSS everywhere.
Hopefully not, yeah. Then self.display appears to be the main div element where you'll probably be adding most of your visible content.
The main container for the page body, basically.
Seems like it. And interestingly, there's self.bootstrap, which strongly hints at optional integration with the Bootstrap CSS framework. Oh, Bootstrap. That's huge for getting a responsive website layout quickly without reinventing the wheel. Exactly. And it looks like QuykHTML makes it something you can choose to use or not, which is flexible. We also see self.preview, which likely relates to some kind of preview functionality built into the library. We might see how that works later.
Okay.
Self.last seems designed to keep track of the most recently created HTML element. That could be handy if you want to quickly modify it or add something right after it.
Yeah, I can see that being useful.
Then there's self.co, again, another instance of a dedicated class, this time CO. This really emphasizes QuykHTML's attention to making your pages discoverable by search engines. It's not just an afterthought.
Good to see. Okay, quite a lot happening just during setup. What about self.animation scripts and self.themes? Those sound interesting.
Self-done-animation scripts looks like a flag, probably a Boolean, to determine if JavaScript for animations should be included in the final output.
Animations too. Okay.
And self.themes is quite cool. It's an instance of the themes class. It appears to offer predefined visual themes. Looking a bit deeper in the code, we see descriptions for themes like basic, which it describes as green buttons, gray text, white backgrounds, and also greens and blues.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this gives you a really quick way to apply some basic styling without having to write all the CSS yourself if you just want a particular look and feel quickly.
That's a very user-friendly touch. Definitely saves you from starting with a totally blank CSS canvas every single time.
Agreed. It lowers the barrier to getting something that looks decent.
All right, so that's the setup. Now, let's talk about actually creating the HTML structure. The express method, the name sounds like it's key for layouts, maybe?
It is. The comments in the code tell us that the express method is specifically designed for easily creating bootstrap rows and columns. And interestingly, it can even load entire layouts from special.ekhp files.
Ah, okay. So if you're using Bootstrap's grid system, this method could be a real accelerator.
Absolutely. It looks like the way to go for structured layouts within QuykHTML if you're leveraging Bootstrap.
How does it work exactly? What does the syntax look like?
Well, it offers a couple of ways. You can use a Python list of lists. Each inner list represents a row in your grid.
Yeah, okay.
And the strings inside that inner list define the HTML elements you want within the columns of that row. For example, the documentation shows q.express, p-text text1, text 2.
I see. So that one line of Python creates a Bootstrap row with 3 columns, each containing a paragraph element with different text.
Precisely. It's a very concise way to define a grid structure.
That's pretty neat. And the file-based approach using .exp files, how does that work?
Yes, you can also point the express method to a file with a .exp extension. Inside this file, you use a simple markup. For instance, putting ap text 1p text 2 text 3 all on a single line would achieve the same result as a list example we just talked about.
So the pipe character separates the columns.
Exactly. The pipe acts as a column separator, and each new line in the .exp file represents a new row in your Bootstrap grid.
Okay, that file-based method could be excellent for organizing and reusing common UI patterns or maybe loading predefined page sections.
Definitely. It sounds like a good way to keep your layout definitions clean and perhaps separate from your main Python logic, which can be really nice for maintainability.
Yeah, I like that separation. So Express is the go-to for those structured Bootstrap layouts. What about just creating individual HTML elements, like ones that aren't necessarily part of a grid, or maybe you're not using Bootstrap at all?
That's where the fundamental new method comes in. It's very straightforward. You just call it with the tag name of the HTML element you want to create. So q.newDiv gives you a div, q.newP gives you a p, q.newD for an image tag, and so on.
Simple enough.
But what's kind of interesting is the specific handling it mentions for button br and input br. If you use that exact string, the tag name followed by a space and b as the argument to new, QuykHTML will not only create the button or input element, but also immediately add a line break, the br tag, right after it, and it wraps both of them together inside a div.
Oh, that's a clever little shortcut, especially for building forms quickly where you often want an input followed by a line break.
Exactly. It's a small convenience, but those little things can add up and make the process feel smoother.
Definitely. Now, once you've built up your HTML structure using New or Express or whatever, how do you actually, see it? How do you view it in a web browser?
That seems to be handled by the web browser open method. You give the path to your generated HTML file.
Like render.html or whatever you called it.
Right, and it will then try to open that file in your system's default web browser. It even includes specific logic to handle the different commands needed to open files on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. It tries to make that process as seamless as possible across platforms.
Very useful for quickly checking your progress as you build, iterating on the design.
Absolutely essential feedback loop.
Okay, what about some of those more dynamic elements we touched on, like those image slideshows you mentioned with the in-group method? How does that work?
Yes, the in-group method looks like it really simplifies creating those image slideshows. You basically provide it with a Python list containing the sources, the URLs or paths of the images you want to include.
Okay.
You can optionally specify the transition delay in seconds. Remember, it defaults to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And there's also a foreseen by size parameter, which sounds useful if you need all the images in your slideshow to be displayed at the same dimensions, preventing layout jumps.
Right. Consistency is good there. How does it actually do the slideshow part? Is it CSS or?
It seems to work by generating the necessary JavaScript. The code mentions creating functions named QuykHTML register and QuykHTML cyclimages. It then automatically adds this generated JavaScript so it gets executed when the page loads. That script then takes care of cycling through the images for you.
Ah, okay. So it injects the JavaScript needed to make the slideshow work. That's quite a bit of functionality built right in, especially for a library that boasts about needing no installation. It's doing more than just basic HTML tag generation.
Indeed. It seems to be aiming for a sweet spot between simplicity and providing genuinely useful prepackaged components.
What else stands out? I see a dupe method. Duplicate, I assume.
Yeah, dupe. It looks like it allows you to create copies or duplicates of existing HTML element objects that you've already created using QuykHTML, maybe ones you made with new or as part of an Express layout.
Why would you need that?
Well, imagine you've created a complex element, maybe a styled button or a card component, using various methods like setText, style.append, etc. If you need several slightly different versions of that element, instead of rebuilding each one from scratch, you could just dupe the original and then make minor modifications to the copies.
Ah, I get it. Like a template. Create one, style it perfectly, then duplicate and tweak the text or link for each instance. Makes perfect sense. Saves repeating yourself.
Exactly. Reuse and modify. Now, when it comes to getting the final HTML output, the actual file or string, I see 2 key methods, prettyfile and render.
Okay, prettyfile all sounds obvious. Make the HTML look nice.
Pretty much.
Oh.
It takes your generated HTML code, which might be all crammed together, and formats it nicely with proper indentation and line breaks to make it much more human readable. Useful if you ever need to inspect the generated source.
Always helpful. And render. That sounds like the main event for output.
It does. Render seems to be the core method for generating the final HTML file. It brings together everything you've built: the structure, the CSS managed by the sticks class, any scripts for slideshows or dragability, and writes it out. It offers several options too.
Like what?
You can specify the output file name. It defaults to render.html if you don't provide one. You can choose to get just the raw HTML string back without saving it to a file using the only.html flag.
Oh, useful if you want to integrate it into a web framework or something.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
You can also copy the generated HTML directly to your system clipboard using setClipboard.
Sure.
And you can control whether the final output is prettified using that prettifiable functionality we just mentioned.
Lots of control over the output.
Yes, and interestingly, the code shows it even tries to locate Google Chrome on your system and specifically open the generated HTML file in Chrome if it finds it. If it can't find Chrome, it falls back to opening it in the default system browser using that web browser open logic.
Huh. A preference for Chrome there. So render is the central command for getting your creation out into the world, or at least into a browser window.
Seems to be the case. It ties everything together.
And I noticed a few other shorter helper methods mentioned, like call, row, and clipit. What are they for?
Those look like pure convenience functions. Call and row likely just return a new div element, but with the appropriate bootstrap call or row class already applied. Just saves you typing q.new div.chrib class row every time. Makes bootstrap layout building even faster.
Little shortcuts.
Exactly. And clipit seems to be a simple utility function to copy any given Python string directly to your system's clipboard. Separate from the render method's clipboard option, just a general purpose clipboard tool.
Okay. And file read. That sounds useful for pulling in external text content, maybe?
Absolutely. File read provides a straightforward way to read the contents of text files. You could just give it the file name if the file's in the same directory as your Python script, or you can specify a full path if it's located elsewhere.
What does it return? Just a string?
It returns the content as a string by default, but it also has an option, return list, which, if set to true, will return the file content as a Python list where each item in the list is a line from the file.
Oh, that could be really useful for processing data from external files line by line. maybe to populate a table or something.
For sure. Handy for pulling in content or configuration.
Okay, and set body background seems pretty self-explanatory, setting a background image on the whole page.
Yes, exactly that. It allows you to easily set a background image for the entire HTML body, and it looks like you can even control the transparency or opacity of the image and specify whether it should scroll along with the page content or remain fixed in place using CSS background properties.
Nice bit of easy styling control.